Her phone lit up on my coffee table while she was in the bathroom, and I'd built a shrine out of direct deposits. That's what I was thinking when I saw the notification preview glow against the dark wood. Not should I look, but how much have I spent on this altar? 22 months of rent on a downtown studio I'd never slept in. $1,400 a month, every month, automatic transfer on the first. Monthly allowances that cleared before she even asked. Groceries, utilities, the car insurance on a vehicle I'd co-signed because her credit score read like a warning label. I'd been so proud of being needed that I'd confused generosity with love, so convinced that providing meant mattering that I'd never stopped to ask what I was actually building. And now her ex-boyfriend's name was lighting up my furniture like a middle finger made of pixels, and the rain outside sounded like applause for my stupidity. The preview was enough. Coming over tonight, babe. Leave the door unlocked like usual. Dorian Kells, the ex she'd assured me was ancient history. The rain outside sounded judgmental. My stomach went cold, not hot, not angry, cold. My ears started ringing. I picked up her phone. No password. She'd said it was because she trusted me. The conversation thread went back weeks, months. Miss you so much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. He's at his office until 8. We have time. He. That was me. I was a scheduling conflict. I heard the bathroom door open, heard her humming, she was humming, and I set the phone back down exactly where it had been. My hands were steadier than I expected. Maybe shock does that, crystallizes you into something functional. Hey, Mireya said, walking back into the living room, still drying her hands on one of my towels. She was beautiful. I'd always thought so. Dark hair, sharp eyes, the kind of face that photographs well and lies better. She smiled at me, easy and warm, the same smile she'd used when I'd agreed to pay for her apartment. You okay? You look weird. I'm fine, I said. Actually, no, I'm not. Her smile faltered, just at the edges. What's wrong? I picked up her phone and handed it to her. You left this out. She took it, glanced at the screen, and I watched her face do this incredible thing, a micro-expression, a flash of panic, then a recalibration so fast I almost admired it. Callum. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Don't. I held up a hand. I already read enough, Dorian. Your ex, who you outgrew. The one you've apparently been seeing the entire time we've been together. It's not. She stopped, recalculating again. I could see her brain working, deciding which version of the lie would land best. It's complicated. It's not complicated, I said. My voice sounded strange, flat. You've been with both of us. That's actually pretty simple. You don't understand? Then explain it. She sat down on my couch, on the cushion she always claimed, and I hated that detail, hated that she'd made herself at home here while making a home with someone else. Dorian and I have history, real history. You can't just erase that. I'm not asking you to erase it. I'm asking why you're continuing it while I'm paying your rent. Her eyes went hard. That was new. This is why I didn't tell you, because you'd make it about money. You made it about money when you let me subsidize your entire life. I never asked you to do that. You never said no. I stood up, needing to move, needing distance. You never once said no, Mireya. Not to the apartment, not to the transfers, not to any of it. You just smiled and said thank you and went back to him. She stood too, defensive now, arms crossed. I have feelings for both of you. That's allowed. Not while lying about it. I wasn't lying. You said he was your ex, past tense. Outgrown. Remember that word? You used it 3 months ago when I asked about your phone lighting up at midnight. I remember because I thought it was such a mature way to talk about it. I actually respected it. Her jaw tightened. Things changed. When? When did things change, Mireya? Because from where I'm standing, things never changed. They were always like this, and I was just too trusting to see it. You're making this bigger than it is. I'm making it exactly as big as it is. You've been with both of us, simultaneously, for months. That's not complicated, that's calculated. Fine. Yes. I've been seeing him. But I care about you too, Callum. I do. It's not like I'm using you. What would you call it? Silence. Rain against glass. The city outside, indifferent. Then she said it, and I knew I'd remember this moment for the rest of my life, this little death in my living room. I'm not going to give up my ex. Deal with it. The words hung there, and I felt something fundamental shift. Not heartbreak. That would come later, in private, when I could afford it. This was simpler. This was clarity. Fine, I said, but I'm not going to give up my dignity. She blinked, surprised. Maybe she'd expected me to fold, to negotiate, to beg her to choose me. What's that supposed to mean? It means get out. Callum, get out of my apartment, Mireya. She stared at me, and I watched her cycle through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, anger, disbelief, calculation. Finally, she grabbed her coat, her purse, her phone with all those messages she thought I'd never see, and headed for the door. You're going to regret this, she said. I already do, I told her. I regret the last 22 months. The door slammed. I stood there in the silence and picked up my own phone. A notification was waiting. Transaction alert. Mireya Caney, card ending in 4739. Merchant, Dalton's Fine Dining. Amount, $287.43. 8 minutes ago. She'd made it to a restaurant before the door closed behind her. On my card. I opened my banking app and stared at the controls. Card management. Freeze. Block. Cancel. My thumb hovered. Not yet. I needed to think. I scrolled back through her messages in my head and found what I'd missed. A location pin. Sent 3 days ago. Got you the spare key. Door code is 4281. Come whenever. Dorian had a key to her apartment. The apartment I paid for. I laughed. Alone in my living room, rain drowning the city, I laughed until my ribs hurt. You're going to do what? Soren Blaine was staring at me across a coffee shop table like I'd announced a plan to join a cult. We'd been friends since college. I'm going to try talking to her, I said. Reasonably, like adults. Callum. Soren set down his cup carefully. 48 hours ago, she told you to deal with it. Now you're buying flowers? The flowers sat between us, brown paper damp from my hands. Roses. I need to see if there's anything salvageable. There isn't. You don't know that. She told you to deal with it, her exact words. Maybe she was defensive. Maybe if I approach it calmly. Callum. Soren leaned forward, and his voice dropped into that register people use when they're trying to convince you not to jump. You're a smart guy. You're one of the smartest guys I know. So why are you being stupid about this? Because I'd invested too much to walk away. Because quitting felt like losing. Because 22 months of my life had been spent building something, and acknowledging it was built on sand meant acknowledging I'd wasted almost 2 years. I didn't say any of that. I just need to see her face when I ask her directly. Soren sat back, defeated. Fine, but when this goes wrong, and it will, call me. Don't do anything that ends with you needing a lawyer. I'm bringing flowers, not a weapon. That's what every true crime documentary says right before the turn. I drove to Mireya's apartment in the late afternoon. The flowers sat on my passenger seat, already looking pathetic. The building was nicer than what she'd had before me. Secure entrance, clean lobby. I'd been proud of that once. I pressed the buzzer. No answer. I pressed again. Nothing. I was about to leave when I saw him. Dorian Kells, walking up with a gym bag, looking like he belonged here. He punched in the door code. 4281. He walked in without seeing me, and I caught the door. Every reasonable impulse told me to leave. Go home. Call Soren. I followed him inside. He took the elevator. I took the stairs, heart pounding. I reached her floor as the elevator opened. He walked to her door, 3B, and used his key. His key. I was through the door behind him before he could turn. Who the… Dorian spun. Callum? That's my name. I looked past him. Mireya was coming out of the bedroom, wearing one of my old t-shirts, and her face went white. Callum, what are you… Followed him, I said. He used his key, to my apartment. Your apartment? Dorian's voice had an edge. Dude, you need to leave. You're in a place I'm paying for, so I'm pretty sure you need to leave. Mireya moved between us, hands up. Both of you, stop. You told me he was your ex, I said, staring at her. You told me it was over. It's complicated. It's not. My voice cracked, and I hated that, hated the loss of control. It's not complicated, Mireya. You've been lying, to both of us maybe, but definitely to me. Dorian stepped forward. She doesn't owe you an explanation. She owes me 2 years. She doesn't owe you anything just because you threw money at her. That was it. That was the line. I dropped the flowers, heard them hit the floor with a pathetic rustle, and shoved him. He shoved back harder, and suddenly we were against the kitchen counter, grappling like idiots who'd never been in a real fight, all technique abandoned for pure angry momentum. He got a hand on my collar, bunched the fabric in his fist. I drove an elbow into his ribs, felt the satisfying contact of bone on muscle. He slammed me into the wall, and something framed fell and shattered. A photo, I didn't see whose, but I heard the glass spray across the hardwood. The apartment smelled like her perfume and his cologne, a nauseating mix that made me want to destroy something beyond repair. Mireya was screaming, hands up, backing toward the bedroom. Stop it! Stop! Both of you! Dorian swung. I ducked, barely, felt the displacement of air by my cheek, and the punch glanced off my cheekbone with enough force to make my vision blur for a second. I came back with my own, straight into his stomach, and heard the air go out of him in a rush, a whoosh, like a tire deflating. He stumbled backward into the kitchen table, knocked over a chair, and it clattered against the tile with a sound like breaking bones. A door opened in the hallway. A neighbor, old guy, bathrobe, terrified, poked his head out. I'm calling security! Do it! Mireya shrieked, and I didn't know if she meant it for me or for Dorian, but the sound in her voice, the sheer panic, made me feel like the villain of my own story. I backed off, breathing hard, my hands shaking. Dorian was bent over, still catching his breath. Mireya was between us again, crying now, and the neighbor had his phone out. Get out, she whispered. Callum, just get out. I looked at her, at Dorian, at the apartment I'd paid for, the life I'd subsidized, the lie I'd been living. On the kitchen counter, half hidden behind a stack of mail, I saw something that made my chest tighten. A package. Addressed to Dorian Kells, this address. Not visiting. Living. Yeah, I said. I'm gone. I walked out before security arrived, before anyone could spin this into something worse, before I did something I couldn't take back. In my car, hands still shaking, I opened my banking app. Card ending in 4739. Active. Available balance displayed in mocking green digits. My thumb hovered over the freeze button. Not yet. I needed leverage. I needed proof. I needed to stop being the victim and start being something colder. I started the engine and called the one person who could make that happen without a hacker montage or a convenient plot device. The property manager. Petra Ilyev's office smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and old coffee. She was mid-40s, Eastern European accent, procedure-driven. I liked her because she didn't pretend to care about the emotional side. Mr. Voss, she said, reviewing her screen. Lease for Unit 3B, Commonwealth Terraces. You're listed as guarantor and primary payment source. That's right. And you wish to terminate the arrangement. I wish to stop paying rent, effective immediately. She looked at me. The lease runs through March. Termination requires 60 days' notice. I understand, but I'm not paying for February. Then Ms. Kane will be responsible for $1,400 due by the 1st. Yes, Petra nodded slowly. This is a financial dispute. It's a fraud dispute. She's been housing someone else with my money. Do you have evidence of lease violations? I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshot I'd taken of the package. Dorian's name, the address, the date. He's living there, not on the lease. Not approved. He has keys. Petra studied the image, then made a note. I'll send a property inspection notice. If there's an unauthorized occupant, that's grounds for immediate lease termination regardless of the 60-day clause. How long? 3 days for notice. Inspection on day 4. If she's in violation, locks change within 24 hours of confirmation. Fast. I don't like people who break the rules, Mr. Voss. She printed something, slid it across the desk. Sign here. This confirms you're withdrawing financial support and authorizing the inspection. After that, it's out of your hands. I signed. My handwriting looked remarkably steady. One more thing, I said. The credit card. Can I block it remotely? That's a bank matter, not a lease matter. But yes. She almost smiled, and I realized she was rooting for me in her own neutral, professional way. Most modern apps allow instant freezing. You should have a button right in the interface. I pulled out my phone again, hands steadier than they should have been. Opened the app. The screen loaded with that artificial smoothness, the kind that makes you feel like you're in control even when everything else is chaos. Found Mireya's card, the one I'd added her to 14 months ago, the one that said authorized user under her name like a title, like a position she'd earned. Card ending in 4739. Spending limit, none. Last transaction, 8732, 3 hours ago, some boutique downtown. I pressed manage card, then freeze card. The app asked me to confirm. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to freeze this card? The cardholder will not be able to make purchases until reactivated. I confirmed. The status changed to inactive with a little red lock icon. My stomach flipped, not from doubt, from power. This was what control felt like. Not love, not trust, not the warm, comfortable feeling of being needed. Control. Cold and surgical and undeniable. Done, I said. Petra nodded. You'll receive updates by email. I recommend you don't visit the property during the eviction process. It never helps. 3 days later, my phone exploded. Texts from Mireya, calls from Mireya, voicemails that started apologetic and ended furious. I didn't answer. I watched the notifications pile up like digital debris. Callum, we need to talk. Why isn't my card working? Pick up the phone. You can't just abandon me like this. Pick up. Soren called me on day 4. She's texting me now. She says you've ruined her life. Good. Callum, what did you want me to do, Soren? Keep paying for her affair? No, but then I don't want to hear it. He sighed. Just be careful. People get dangerous when they're desperate. I hung up and checked my email. Message from Petra Ilyev. Subject, Unit 3B inspection results. Unauthorized occupant confirmed. Male, mid-30s, personal effects throughout unit including bedroom and bathroom. Lease violation substantiated. Notice of termination delivered. Locks to be changed February 1st, 8 hours a.m. February 1st was tomorrow. I stared at the email, waiting for guilt to arrive. It didn't. What arrived instead was something colder, sharper, satisfaction. Mireya called 16 more times that night. I turned my phone off and slept better than I had in weeks. The next afternoon, I was leaving my office when I saw them. Mireya and Dorian standing next to my car in the parking garage. The garage was one of those brutalist concrete structures that echo footsteps and make everything feel like a crime scene waiting to happen. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everyone in a sickly yellow that made healthy people look like corpses. She looked wrecked. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a messy knot, eyes red and swollen. He looked angry in that specific way men get when their meal ticket is being revoked. They'd clearly been waiting, probably for an hour or more, and I wondered if they'd fought in the interim, if he'd blamed her for not keeping me under control. Callum! Mireya pushed off the car, my car, the one I owned outright, and rushed toward me. Heels clicking on concrete, echoing in the empty structure. We need to talk. Right now. No, we don't. You had me evicted. You violated your lease. I stopped paying rent. Cause and effect. I kept my voice level, detached, the way you'd explain gravity to a child. Dorian stepped forward, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. How far could he push before security showed up? You're a coward, hiding behind landlords and bank apps. And you're a parasite hiding behind someone else's credit card. I walked past him toward my car, keys already out. Move. He moved fast, grabbed the front of my jacket with both hands. Mireya pulled at his arm, nails scraping. Dorian, don't. I jerked back, heard fabric tear. Get off me. You think you can just ruin her life because you got your feelings hurt? I think I can stop funding your lifestyle because it's my money. A voice from behind me. Gentlemen. Security guard, older guy, hand already on his radio. This is private property. You need to leave. We're just talking, Dorian said. You're grabbing. That's assault. You want me to call it in? Dorian let go, hands up, playing innocent. Mireya was crying again, the kind of crying designed for an audience. Callum, please. I have nowhere to go. All my stuff is locked in there. Take it up with Petra. She runs the building. You know I can't afford it without you. Probably should have thought of that before you gave your ex a key. I made a mistake. You made a choice, repeatedly, for months. The security guard stepped closer. Ma'am, sir, you need to leave now or I'm calling the police. They left. Mireya looked back once, and I waited for the guilt to hit, for some flicker of regret. Nothing. I got in my car and drove home, and when I checked my phone, there was an email from Petra. FYI, received a call this morning from someone claiming to be you, requesting rent payment reinstatement. Caller ID showed different number. Voice didn't match our previous conversations. I informed them any changes must be submitted in person, with ID. Call was logged and recorded per standard protocol. Dorian had tried to impersonate me. I forwarded the email to Soren with a one-word message. Evidence. He replied immediately. Of what? Building a case. For what? I didn't answer. I wasn't sure yet, but I was starting to understand something important. Revenge didn't have to be violent. It didn't have to be illegal. It just had to be precise. I parked on the street outside my building, engine still running, and noticed something wrong. My rearview mirror, droplets, fresh rain, except it hadn't rained in 6 hours. I checked my side mirror, checked the hood, dry. Someone had been close enough to breathe on my car, close enough to touch it. My phone buzzed. A photo, no message, unknown number, my license plate, taken from inches away, close enough to see the registration sticker, the tiny scratch on the left side from when I'd backed into a pole last year. Proof someone was watching. Proof someone was keeping score. I forwarded the photo to Petra, to Soren, and sat there in my car with the engine idling, understanding that this wasn't over, not by a long shot. She arrived at 10:47 a.m. on a Wednesday that felt like the end of something. I was at my desk, halfway through a call with a client about contract renewals, something boring and safe and predictable, when our receptionist appeared in my doorway. Janine, 26, always nervous, always apologetic, the kind of person who said sorry when someone else bumped into her. She was mouthing sorry and pointing toward the lobby with an expression that said, I tried to stop her, but she insisted. I ended the call mid-sentence, told the client I'd call back, and walked out into the glass-walled corridor that led to reception. Mireya was standing in our reception area, surrounded by minimalist furniture that cost more than her monthly rent used to be, and the kind of cold corporate light that made everyone look slightly jaundiced. She'd dressed carefully, clean jeans, a sweater I'd bought her last Christmas, cashmere, expensive, hair down and brushed smooth, makeup subtle but present. She looked like the version of herself I'd first met, the one I'd fallen for at some mutual friends party 22 months ago. The one who'd smiled at me and made me feel like I could be the kind of man who mattered. "Callum," she said, and I heard relief and calculation in equal measure. "Thank God. I was worried you wouldn't see me." "You're at my office, Mireya. What do you want?" "To talk. Privately." She glanced around at Janine, at the junior associate pretending not to watch from his cubicle, at the senior partner's admin who was absolutely taking mental notes for later gossip. "Please." I led her to the small conference room, glass walls, nowhere to hide, everyone could see us, and closed the door. "You have 5 minutes." "I was wrong." She sat down, hands folded like a penitent. "About everything. About Dorian, about lying to you, about taking you for granted." "Okay. I want to fix this." "You can't." "Callum, please." Her voice cracked, and I wondered if it was real or rehearsed. "I ended it with Dorian. Completely. I told him it was over, that I chose you." "You're 2 weeks too late." I know I am. But I'm here now, and I'm asking, begging for another chance." I stared at her across the conference table, this woman I'd spent almost 2 years with, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "What do you want me to do, Mireya? Reinstate the card? Pay for a new apartment? Pretend the last month didn't happen?" "I want you to forgive me." "Why?" She blinked. "Because you love me." "Loved. Past tense." "You don't mean that." "I do." I stood up, walked to the small counter where we kept water and coffee for client meetings, poured myself a cup of orange juice from the morning spread, then turned to face her. "You humiliated me. You lied to me for months. You let me fund your entire life while you were with someone else. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a strategy." She stood too, defensive now. "I never pretended to be perfect." "No. You pretended to be faithful. I had feelings for both of you. That's real, that's human." I walked closer, juice in hand, and saw her expression shift. Confusion at first, then wariness, like an animal sensing a trap. "You made me feel like an ATM with a pulse, like my only value was what I could provide, like I was a service, not a person." "That's not—" "It is." I stopped in front of her, close enough to see the mascara threatening to run, close enough to smell that perfume she always wore, the one I'd bought her 3 bottles of. "So, now I'm going to show you how it felt." I tipped the cup forward and poured the juice over her head. It happened fast. The splash, the cascade, her gasp that was almost a scream. The cold orange liquid streamed down her face, plastered her hair to her skull, soaked into that cashmere sweater, and darkened it from cream to rust. Drops hit the conference room floor with tiny wet sounds. She stood there, frozen, mouth open in shock, hands half raised like she couldn't decide whether to wipe her face or cover it. The smell of citrus filled the small room, artificial and too sweet. "That's what it felt like," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised me. "Humiliating, sticky, watched. Like everyone knew, but you didn't realize they could see what you'd become. You—" She couldn't find words, could only sputter and wipe at her face, orange juice dripping from her chin onto her jeans. "Get out of my office," I said. "Get out of my life. Don't call, don't text, don't show up. We're done." She ran. Out of the conference room, through the lobby, past Janine's horrified face, into the hallway. I heard her footsteps receding, heard a choked sob echoing in the stairwell. I set the empty cup down, returned to my desk, and tried to feel something. Regret, guilt, satisfaction, anything. What I felt was tired. 30 minutes later, Petra Ilyev called me. "Mr. Voss, you need to come to the property office." Now. Why? Ms. Caney is here demanding access to her unit. She's claiming the eviction was illegal and that you forged documentation. That's insane. I know, but she's refusing to leave until someone addresses her complaints, and she's brought Mr. Kells with her. I'm on my way. The property office was in a separate building from the apartments, neutral ground, all business, designed to keep disputes impersonal. I arrived to find Mireya and Dorian already there, standing in the waiting area like hostile witnesses. Mireya had tried to clean herself up, but her hair was still damp, her sweater still stained. Petra stood behind the counter, arms crossed, a wall of professional indifference. Mr. Voss, thank you for coming. What's the situation? Ms. Kane is claiming the eviction was processed without proper notice and that you falsified evidence of lease violations. I turned to Mireya. You're claiming I faked the photo of Dorian's package? You could have staged it, she said. With what? Photoshop? A time machine? Dorian stepped forward. You manipulated the whole thing to get revenge. I stopped paying rent on a lease I guaranteed. That's not manipulation, that's economics. You had me evicted. Mireya's voice went shrill. You froze my card without warning. You told lies to the property manager. I told the truth. You violated the lease. Petra confirmed it. Petra nodded. Inspection revealed an unauthorized occupant. All procedures were followed correctly. See? Dorian pointed at me. He paid you off. Excuse me? Petra's voice could have cut glass. I run this property by the lease agreement, not bribes. If you're accusing me of misconduct, you can file a formal complaint with the ownership group. I'm just saying it's suspicious. What's suspicious, I said, is that you tried to call pretending to be me to reinstate the rent payments. Dorian went still. Mireya looked at him, confused. Petra pulled out a printed log. February 2nd, 9:34 a.m. Caller claimed to be Callum Voss, requested payment reinstatement. Voice didn't match, number didn't match. We have the call recorded. That's, Dorian started. Fraud, Petra finished. Attempted fraud, technically, since I didn't fall for it. But fraud. Play the recording, I said. Petra hesitated. Mr. Voss, I don't think... Play it. She sighed, pulled out her phone, tapped a few times. Dorian's voice came through tinny but clear. Hi, yeah, this is Callum Voss. I need to reinstate payments on Unit 3B. There was a misunderstanding. Petra's voice. Can you verify the account email? Pause. I don't have it in front of me right now. Then I can't help you. Policy requires in-person verification with ID for any financial changes. Have a good day. Click. Silence in the office. The kind of silence that feels like pressure in your ears. Mireya was staring at Dorian like she was seeing him for the first time. Really seeing him. Not the romance, not the history, but the reality of what he was. You tried to steal his identity? She whispered. I was trying to fix things, Dorian said, defensive now, backing toward the wall. You were losing your apartment. You were panicking. I was trying to help. By pretending to be him? It's not a big deal. It's illegal, Petra said flatly, and I'd never heard such satisfaction in someone's bureaucratic monotone. And it's logged with our legal department, along with timestamps, recording, and caller ID. We keep those records for 7 years. I looked at Mireya, and something in me, something that had been tense for 22 months, finally relaxed. That's who you chose. Someone who'd commit fraud to keep living in an apartment I paid for. Someone who'd impersonate me rather than get a job and support you himself. Callum? No. I turned to Petra, done with both of them. Is there anything else you need from me? Actually, yes. She pulled out another document, this one on official letterhead with the property management logo. I need you to review the final billing statement. Ms. Kane left the unit with damages, broken picture frame, stains on the carpet, a dent in the drywall approximately 6 inches in diameter. You're listed as guarantor, So you're technically liable until the final walkthrough is complete and the deposit is processed. How much? $847.16. Mireya made a strangled sound. That's insane. Those were already there. Documentation from the move-in inspection says otherwise, Petra said, completely unmoved, and slid 2 photos across the counter. Before and after, the wall pristine in the first, dented in the second, exactly where Dorian had slammed me during our fight. Everything is documented. I looked at the itemized list. Damage to the wall from where Dorian and I had fought, broken glass from the photo frame, carpet stain from something I didn't want to think about. Bill me, I said. Consider it the cost of freedom. You're unbelievable, Mireya spat. You poured juice on me in front of your co-workers, you have me evicted, and now… Your home? I stared at her. It was never your home. It was my investment, and you made it terrible. Dorian grabbed my shoulder. You need to stop. I shrugged him off. Don't touch me. Or what? He pushed closer, desperation rolling off him. You'll call your property manager? I'll have security remove you. I'm not scared of you. You should be. He shoved me. Not hard, but enough to cross the line, enough to make Petra reach for the panic button. I didn't shove back. I stayed calm, stayed cold, and pulled out my phone. Petra, you said the call was logged with your legal department? Yes. And you have documentation of all the lease violations? Yes. Can I get copies? She looked uncertain. For what purpose? Insurance, in case Mr. Kells here decides to escalate. Dorian's face went pale. You're threatening me? I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Mireya stepped between us again, her old instinct, but this time she looked lost. Callum, please. This has gone too far. It went too far when you gave him a key. I loved you, she said, and her voice broke. I really did. Past tense, I said. Interesting. The door to the office opened and a security guard walked in, different from the garage guy, younger, broader, radio already in hand. Ms. Ilyev, you pressed the button? Yes. These gentlemen need to leave the property. We're not done, Dorian started. You are, the guard said. Not aggressive, just certain. Let's go. Dorian looked at me, at Mireya, at Petra. This isn't over. It is, I said. You just don't know it yet. He lunged for my phone, maybe to delete the evidence, maybe just out of rage, and the security guard caught him mid-reach. Sir, don't make this worse. The second security guard appeared in the doorway, 2-on-1. Dorian was smart enough to see the math. Fine, he said, jerking free. We're leaving. But Mireya wasn't moving. She was staring at me with something I couldn't quite name, betrayal, maybe, or recognition. You really stopped loving me. I stopped being your ATM. The love died a while ago. When? When I saw your ex's name light up on your phone in my apartment. She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something. Then she turned to Dorian. We should go. They walked out together, and I watched through the glass walls as they crossed the parking lot. 2 people who'd built a life on my money and my blindness. Petra handed me the documents. You'll get the final bill by email. Thanks. Mr. Voss? She looked at me over her glasses again, softer now. For what it's worth, you handled this correctly. Legally, procedurally. You didn't make threats, you didn't break rules, you just stopped enabling them. Doesn't feel like a win. It's not supposed to, it's just supposed to be over. I walked outside into the cold afternoon, gray sky threatening rain again, and checked my phone. No messages, no calls, no notifications from her, from him, from anyone demanding anything from me. For the first time in 2 years, I was alone in a way that felt like relief. I started my car, pulled onto the street, and drove home through a city that suddenly looked clearer, buildings sharper, streets wider, the lights at the intersections making sense again. The radio played something instrumental, something without words, and I let it fill the silence. Behind me, I knew Mireya was crying in Dorian's car, both of them facing the reality of rent they couldn't pay, bills they couldn't cover, and a life they couldn't sustain without me subsidizing every part of it. Ahead of me was nothing but open road and the clean simplicity of being alone with my dignity intact. And that, finally, was enough.